Hi, and welcome to episode 2 of the podcast. Today, I kind of want to delve deeper into the science behind what we're talking about, right? I mentioned briefly in episode 1, if you've been paying attention, that my background is in biology. So, this is before I got into marketing, I was a biologist, and I kind of love why what we do is rooted in something tangible that you can understand. This is not just, things that we came up with or whatever. It's like there's a rhyme and a reason, and it's all rooted to the way that human brains are wired, right? And so this is why my brand slogan is that we're an agency that understands the human mind's insatiable hunger for compelling stories and helping brands tell those stories. And it really is. The human mind hungers for stories. Think about your own life, right? You crave stories probably every minute of every day. I mean, genuinely, right? Which is why social media, movies, streaming services, they all have such a hold on us, because we want to watch compelling stories. We want to listen to compelling stories. We want to sit around happy hour and tell each other stories. We love stories. But it's not just what the brain enjoys. Fundamentally, stories are how the human brain thinks. It's how we remember things. This is why, you can sit at a boardroom and give somebody the breakdown of the numbers for the semester or the quarter, and nobody's going to remember those numbers in 20 minutes, much less 3 days. Data like that just goes straight through our brains like Swiss cheese. It's irrelevant, but if you can wrap that information in a story, right? Or not information, but if you can tell a story, somebody will remember that story 7 years from now. Like we are wired for stories, and so I kind of want to explain why, and then bring it around to why essentially this is a hack that you can use for your brand's marketing, right? This is not just woo-woo that we've made up. It's like it really is a hack. If you can figure out how to tell good stories, you are tapping into a very easy part of the human brain. It wants to be tapped. It wants to be tapped. So if you're tapping, it's open. It's open for it. And so let's start, I guess. So to understand where this is all coming from, you got to go back 85,000 years ago, when humanity was still in its infancy in the continent of Africa. And around this time, a few things happen, which is why it's called the cognitive revolution. One, we start to really hone in on language. We're not just giving things names, right? Things that we can see, right? Gazelle, zebra, lion, sun, wet. We are giving names to things that don't have a physical manifestation, right? That you cannot see. They're concepts like love, honor, duty, friendship. These are complex ideas, and now for us they're simple, but imagine the leap it takes to start naming things that don't have a physical manifestation, ideas, concepts, right? It's quite a leap. And so that's going on, right? So our language skills are evolving exponentially, and people are starting to tell each other stories. It's right? You imagine that everybody's sitting around a campfire at night, making dinner, and somebody's telling the story of how they escaped the lion earlier with their life, right? They got away. And somebody else is saying how they managed to knock down a honeycomb without getting stung to death by 1,000 bees. And everybody around, they're listening. And if they are wired the right way, the smart ones are storing these stories, right? Because it's like, well, I would like to know how that guy escaped the lion. That's useful for me to know. Or I would like to know how that guy got the honeycomb without hurting himself, because I've gotten hurt before. I'd like to know how he did it. And then the next time they go out and they encounter those same scenarios, the ones who were able to store this information are now they have the leg up on how to approach that situation. And so the human brain starts to store these stories in the same place that it would store lived experiences, right? So it is storing them in the same place as your actual memories of things that you have done and seen. But it's now, it's almost like a cheat code. If you can hear how somebody else did it or how somebody else experienced something or whatever, you store it. You don't necessarily have to go through that thing again. You don't have to be the one that survives the lion and makes it. Now, if you know how he did it, presumably you might get as lucky by using his same strategy again. And so over the course of thousands of years, the people who can store those kind of memories, they've got a leg up on everybody else. And the other guys get eaten by lions, but you survive because you were listening to your uncle's story, whatever. And on we go. And so after 80,000 years, where we are is a species that is highly competent at telling stories, listening to stories, and storing those stories for future use, right? We hunger them because it's a life hack. We can go through experiences without going through them, right? We can watch love stories and watch people risk it all for love without actually feeling any of the rejection ourselves. We can watch an adventure movie or a war movie and feel all the same emotions, right? Because it's tapping into those mirror neurons, and you can really get yourself into the story. You can experience what the characters are experiencing without any of the risk, any of the downside. But if you're clever enough, you're taking away lessons from that, right? You're taking lessons of potentially how to approach a girl the next time you want to ask her out, or you're approaching how to handle some tricky situation at work or even on a street fight. I don't know. But this is what your brain is doing, and it is just hungering for stories because it's got a lot of storage power for potential situations that you could go through. So, and so what's curious is that since we all started off on the continent of Africa, what this means is that as the species migrated across the globe, it has taken these stories with them. And if you look at stories, they are almost universal across the globe. Everybody has some version of one story, some version of another story, some version of another story. They're quite similar. And the only way you can really explain that is that we all came from one place, developed these stories, and then took them with us to every corner of the globe. And so that's interesting because if you analyze, there really aren't that many individual plots, right? Every story you've ever seen belongs to a handful of plots, and every character falls in line to, a couple hundred archetypes. And what that means is that we are super competent at recognizing what those archetypes and those plots. And so that's a biological advantage that we can do, or we can use, I'm saying, because essentially if you can figure out how to hack this biological wiring that we are predisposed to, you can use it for your own marketing and your brand, right? And this is why it's imperative that you choose a combination of archetypes for your brand. 2 or 3 seems to be the sweet spot. 3 to 4, really. And then a plot, and then just craft that story as if your brand were this character with depth and a goal, right? Your plot, like an end goal, a promised land, a mission, values. And you start to carve out this character out of your brand that is a complete, compelling character in a complete, compelling story that you're telling, that you're inviting your audience to be a part of. And my God, they're gonna respond. They're going to respond. The brands that do this appropriately see the benefits. And so I'm gonna talk more. I'm hoping to do these podcast episodes with more regularity. It really depends on like my schedule and stuff. I'm going to try to batch record some of them so we can at least get some sort of regular scheduling happening. But if you are curious on how this works for your own brand, by all means, send me a message. post a question in the comments if you have any. But email us. We can get a conversation started about how to use this strategy for your own business. You can check out our website. I have a ton of written content up there about this process. Same thing on our Instagram. We've got, a year and a half worth of posts about, like, the dive a little deeper into archetypes, what they mean, what they do, plots, etc. So thank you so much for joining me on episode 2. I hope to bring you episode 3 soon. Thank you until next time.